what do you know about AstraZeneca?
These days, seems everyone has heard something.
I think the AstraZeneca, they say it is a less percentage for stopping you getting COVID.
The clinical trial didn't do people above 65.
There wasn't enough information on 65-year-olds and over.
Some countries have decided to put a pause on it.
I think there were some trials in Europe for blood clot related things. As far as I know, they're very unsubstantiated.
Just keeping up is almost a full-time job, but how many of us have the scientific know-how to come to the right conclusions?
Because it sounds like everybody's changing their minds or they don't know what they're doing, it's really hard for the general public to sort through to get to the best information.
Here's some breaking news. Now CNN has learned alarming details about what caused drug giant AstraZeneca to halt its vaccine trial.
Consider how, from the very start, errors and anxiety during clinical trials would plant the seed in public perception that maybe this was sloppy science.
Currently, we're still going back and forth with the company with respect to some data.
And the impression would stick. The AstraZeneca vaccine was second class.
If I had had the chance to choose, I would have wanted to have the Pfizer one.
There was a flip-flop on whether the vaccine was effective in seniors, and of course, recent questions about a possible link to blood clots being investigated in Europe. More than a dozen countries would put the vaccine on pause.
We have to keep reminding the public that this virus is a moving situation.
Margaret McNeil is a health communications expert at the University of Toronto who has watched every step of the AstraZeneca saga unfold in a very public, very piecemeal way.
In that we want our science to be black and white, and science is quite messy.
And even experts have a hard time explaining away apparent contradictions.
2 months ago, you said I shouldn't get this vaccine. Now you're telling me I should get this vaccine. And unfortunately, places like France and Germany are dealing with this.
France is one of several European countries that decided early on it was premature to believe AstraZeneca was effective in seniors. A medical decision that was also political, but the way it was communicated. French President Emmanuel Macron would tell reporters AstraZeneca was quasi-ineffective in older people. And even as governments, one by one, changed their minds, the perception stuck. And today, somewhere between half and 3/4 of all AstraZeneca vaccines in the country sit unused. It's a wake-up call for Canada.
The best vaccine for you to take is the very first one that is offered to you.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's recent plea after a weekend in Montreal where 12% of people in one neighborhood who showed up for their vaccinations refused them after learning it was the AstraZeneca shot. And consider the slippery slope of playing favorites during a public health emergency. It's telling that one of the most common questions we get from CBC viewers is, can I choose which vaccine I get? Two others that we get quite often: what happens if I refuse a vaccine? And if I get the AstraZeneca shot, can I still get a Pfizer or Moderna booster later? Experts all around agree there's nothing easy about navigating a pandemic. Hey, Dr. McGeer.
1 second, eventually I'll get control over two computers or two screens or whatever the heck it is.
Dr. Alison McGeer's advice: be flexible and understand that course changes happen.
Okay. This is a pandemic. If we're not changing our mind, there's something wrong. I hope we're going to change our mind because every day new data comes. And as new data comes, you try to make better decisions about how you're rolling out vaccines.
Makes people
But another prominent infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Zain Chagla, adds those decisions need to be much better communicated.
You need public uptake to be as optimal as possible. But how do you communicate this effectively? How do you make sure the messaging is on par with all these stakeholders at play such that it seems like it's coming from a single voice rather than 4 different voices saying 4 different things?
And that's the key when you consider one of the simplest truths in this pandemic. Once a fact or number or concern gets out, it can be very difficult to rein back in.